Well, good afternoon, one and all. Do let us know if there's any audio issues, if I'm too loud or too quiet. But joining me on this kind of festive show this week ahead of our Boxing Day kickoff with Chelsea Saints head to Stamford Bridge. Joining me all the way from California, and we've got to be, huge credit to Matt here. In fact, getting up at the crack of dawn to record his shows and joining us. What's the time over there, Matt, right now?
It is 7:03 a.m.
And I mean, you get up at what, 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock most days for match days. So it's not going to be any different on Boxing Day, right?
Nope, nope. I'm actually quite glad we played just a normal 3 p.m. kickoff. Nothing, no, not like Spurs a couple seasons ago where I think I was on about 35 minutes of sleep and then watched the beating we took. So yeah, no changes this year. This should be nice. And thanks for having me on. It's been it's a pleasure to join you as always.
Yeah, I mean, it's good to have you on the show. Finally, I mean, we've been trying to make this happen. Obviously, work commitments have kind of denied that a little bit. But Southampton Delivery podcast, excellent show, and have regular guests with somebody new every single week. So huge commitment from your perspective. But let's go straight to our comments and say hello if you're with us. Hello, Tom. Hello, the Saints Talk. I can see you've already commented a few times as well. But if you're new to the show, get yourselves in the comments. Ask any questions you want to say to us. Hello, afternoon, or good morning to Matt. In fact, from Up the Saints 123. Good to have you all with us. But let's remind ourselves of what is a fantastic victory at the weekend. Aston Villa 1, Southampton 3. Let's start actually from the very top of the game. Really, 2 o'clock. One forced change. Armstrong in for Gineppo, and that was kind of enforced. Really, Gineppo was injured.
Yeah, no complaints. I think from most people. That team that had been playing recently has done kind of the best we've done all season. The 4-2-2-2 has allowed us to press and actually play for the most part, take West Ham out of it. Fairly exciting football for most of the last couple of weeks. So I wasn't complaining about it, and I don't think many people were. I think some people would have, of course, liked to see Cedric out, but that's just people are he brought that on himself, but there's nobody to replace him, which Ralph also mentioned in his press conference this week.
Yeah, indeed. Ralph did reiterate that fullbacks was the position that we are looking into, and central defenders in the January window. But that remains to be seen what kind of how that develops. But I mean, again, we don't have anybody to fill in. Valerie is still with his mystery illness. You know, we haven't got anybody to come in at left back, and ironically, our former left back was on the field for playing for Aston Villa on Saturday.
Yeah, it was nice to see Target out there. I'm glad he didn't have a stellar game, but he I like Matt Target. I miss him? No, because I think I like 17 million pounds a little bit better. But yeah, nice to see him. But he linked up nicely with Grealish down the left a couple of times for them. But overall, I think if we just focus on what we did, uh, an extremely positive performance. I think from the very beginning, the number of crosses that were going in, and not just aimless crosses, but guys were in the box, guys were coming in late, guys were trying to get there, and I think the fact we didn't really let Villa breathe for most of the match, I thought was fantastic. Even when we were 2-0 up, I don't think they got back into it until it was about 15 minutes left. So I was overall very very impressed with the performance from beginning to end.
Yeah, I mean, it was I think it was almost a complete performance. I mean, we've seen glimpses of that, hints of it over the season. We're playing kind of 45 minutes here, 60 minutes there, and then deciding not to turn up in the rest of that game. But I think Saturday was a whole performance, and third win in five, early Christmas present.
Absolutely, absolutely, and to spend Christmas outside the relegation zone is something that it makes my life a lot easier, and because my family will only look at the relegation zone and then want to give me crap, and now they can't. So it's always nice for those people who to have to find something else to give me crap about, but they will, I'm sure. But yeah, I thought that the idea that we hadn't really played a full 90 minutes for most of the season was really starting to be kind of worrisome. And the fact that when we were making mistakes and allowing teams back into it, they were able to punish us for it. And this time, I think we did that. We made the mistakes count. Danny Ings with a great finish for his second goal, off of a poor layoff. I don't know what that was from Villa, but yeah, our performance from top to bottom, no complaints for it whatsoever. McCarthy with a couple of big saves when we needed him. The Danny Ings being there to sweep up the mess because Shane Long can't slot it into the corner himself. All good things.
Yeah, I mean, you're getting ahead of ourselves a little bit
Sorry,
too
sorry, sorry.
quickly here, but it's all right. It's all right. I mean, let's talk about actually, in fact, a Villa's early chance. I thought it could be kind of a squeaky bum kind of a game, but it was quite open in that first half. Villa with an early chance denied by McCarthy, but as it turned out, mostly no threat from Villa. We had nothing to worry about, really.
Yeah, no, I think that first chance was their best chance of the game. I think even when you look at the one that Grealish managed to take late on, that was just a great goal and something that, you maybe you close them down a little bit sooner, but you would generally allow people to take those shots. There aren't very many people who are going to make you pay from there. But that early shot from El Ghazi, I think I was really worried because that ball came all the way across the 6-yard box. Nobody got a touch to it, and then McCarthy looked like he was starting to go down there for a second, but managed to get an arm up and swat it away. And that from that point on, that was a little bit worrying. But after that, I didn't really. Very many times they really threatened us. I would say they had another couple shots from outside the box, but I think for the most part, when we were pressing up high and forcing them to make mistakes, they didn't look comfortable. They didn't want to. They didn't want us anywhere near them, and so I think we just kind of took care of business, and the game plan worked from the very first whistle. I think.
Now, it's almost a case that Aston Villa perhaps was watching our DVDs and our performance at Newcastle. No threat, no pressure, nobody wanting or offering for the ball. But, I mean, it's Danny Ings once again with the breakthrough. Firstly, let's comment from Liam here. He was at the game on Saturday. Absolutely brilliant performance. And Ings proving once again why he's so vital this season. Piers has just added Long and Ings partnership playing well. And here it is. And the breakthrough after Shane Long pounces onto a long ball. It gets one-on-one with Tom Heaton, and he kind of saves the initial shot, but he rebounds into Danny Ings, and he's there once again. Danny Ings, so important right now.
Yeah, I mean, you look at our list of like I think the last 12 goals, and it's basically mostly Ings, and then Ward-Prowse and Stevens and Bertrand and now have all chipped in a little bit, but we would be in a world of hurt without Danny Ings this season. We don't have anybody else in the squad scoring a ton of goals, and he's scoring goals where he's finding himself in the right positions at the right time, and that's something that I think we've been missing in the team over the past couple of seasons. Is just that instinct to be kind of knowing where to be and knowing how to put himself in those positions, and then taking the chances, which I think has been great. You kind of wish Long would have been able to put that away himself, just maybe for his own confidence. But the fact that Ings is there and that strike partnership is working really, really well. You have to give Long some credit for getting onto that ball and doing the running. And I think that whole passage of play, like Villa tried to play it long, which is something that teams have been able to do against us recently. It seems like when they play through the press that way, they just go over the top of it. We haven't been able to deal, but Bednarak with a good header, Ward-Prowse controlled it, got it to Redmond, and then the commentator here was saying how brilliant Redmond's ball was for Long. I'm not sure it was anything more than just we'll just play it into the space and see what happens, but whatever, it worked out. And once we were up 1-0, it was kind of just I guess for me, it was just don't sit back, don't do what we've done so often this season, and we didn't. To their credit, the team kept the pressure up and forced Villa to make more mistakes.
Yeah, and indeed, Danny Ings has been this talisman. Of course, huge doubts over his fitness at the start of the season, but he's now forming a partnership with Shane Long, who does all the busy work and then just manages to find Danny Ings in the space for him to get on the end of rebounds, any kind of loose balls. We'll get to that in a moment as well. But let's talk about the second goal then. James Ward-Prowse. Well, we've come to expect this over the years. A fantastic delivery. No, it doesn't always come off, but it's a great cross into the danger area, who finds Jack Stevens, who, I don't mean to be honest, if you look closer at the replay, he barely needs to get off the ground here. He only gets about a centimetre or two above the defender, who looked fairly pathetic, I'll be honest. But Stevens has popped up with a knack of scoring these goals from corners recently.
Yeah, I think this is the last one. I think maybe against City in the cup, but it was. Once again, it's down to that delivery from Ward-Prowse, and he's kind of established himself a little bit in the team. When we made the switch from the kind of 4-3-3 system or what we were doing earlier with 3-5-2 to now him being there next to Højbjerg and having to do a lot of the running, put in a lot of physical work, and then still taking the time to put in these balls that are dangerous, that cause people trouble. And he did it from we had an early chance to do that, and the balls he put in earlier were great as well. And then Stevens, it wasn't Ronaldo-esque by any means, but he got up and got a touch to it, and as a result, we were up 2-0, and you could see kind of what it meant to the team. The team were playing with confidence, and that's something that we haven't seen in a long time, and it's something that we definitely haven't seen at home in a long time. And hopefully, we bring a little bit of that back with us over the next couple of matches. But just for that match to kind of for Stevens to do that, and then the team to be able to kind of take that momentum and carry it through the rest of the match, I thought was extremely important for us going forward.
Yeah, I mean, we can count on one hand how many times we've had a confident performance, and we go into the break at 2-0, and it was comfortable. Aston Villa, I've got to say, as I said, they've probably been watching our performances against Newcastle, against West Ham, against others, and they were pitiful.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they looked terrible, and I want to give us some credit, but we do have to kind of take that into consideration a little bit too. Is they were not playing well at all, and that's okay. You have to take advantage of that. You can only beat the team that's in front of you, and the fact that we never really gave them the chance, I would say maybe to the last 15 minutes to really get a foothold into the match. And we should say that the losing McGinn early, I think, really hurt them. That caused them some trouble, and the forced early change for them, I think, was going to be an issue. But really, even through the 7 minutes when that change was made, we were the better team.
Yeah, I mean, even coming out into the second half with some confidence and comfortable on the ball. In fact, not long after the break, again, it's an early goal from Danny Ings, pouncing onto the Defella. Defella, that's a combination of a defender and Villa word. I don't know what I'm doing, but it was a kamikaze pass though, but a great movement from Danny Ings, a swivel and strike, 7 goals in 7, becomes the first Saints player to score double figures since before Christmas, since James Beattie and Matt Letizia. He's in good company.
Yeah, you look at that, and he's already kind of going to endear himself to all the Saints fans everywhere, and just to have for us to have a double-digit Premier League goal scorer is something we should take note of, because there were several seasons that we didn't have one, period, and that's a real issue. We should highlight again, though, that look at the rest of the team and the goals that we have there, and we need to get goals from elsewhere. But it doesn't mean it doesn't mean for us to stop feeding Danny Ings, because at this point, just keep giving him the ball.
Yeah, I mean, only one player has scored more than him this season.
Yeah. So for him to be that high up in the Premier League table is not something I don't think any of us expected, and it is really nice to see him up there in the charts. I will admit that I did not have him in my fantasy team. So people that did, I think the team of the week this week, or he was in the team that had the highest points. So good for Danny, and I'm glad he's playing well.
And he's been in my fantasy team, at least taking some consolation, because I'm still at the bottom of the Southampton podcast league. I thought I climbed off the bottom, but then suddenly Ray scored a double points with Willian, who scored some goals for Chelsea, Sunday. So a bit of a sucker punch for me. But I mean, actually, tell us in the comments how many goals you think Danny Ings might be able to score this season. Just a rough number, Matt.
I was going to say something ridiculous, but I won't do that. I think 18 would be good. I'd like to see him get to 20, but I think 18 would be pretty solid. I imagine that he may be rested at some points, especially over the next couple of weeks. Although you'll hear on my episode that comes out tomorrow, my guest didn't necessarily agree with that. So I think he may have to slow down a little bit. Just I'm worried about his injuries, but I think that's I just don't want him to get injured. So I don't know how we manage that going forward, or how much he will be able to do. But I think 18 is a pretty solid number, and I'd be happy with that return.
I mean, that's probably the best we've had since, I guess, James Beattie. I guess maybe Marian Pahars. It's been a long time. In fact, how many? I think Ricky Lambert scored about 17 in one of his seasons as well. So again, in good company. But if we just kind of wrap up the Aston Villa game here, I mean, they did manage to get a consolation. And to be fair to Grealish, actually, I looked over to my friend who was stood with me on Saturday night. I mean, you got to give it to him. It's a great technique for him to take it on almost sort of first time. But we gave him far too much time and space. And I guess the only real negative coming out of Saturday was another clean sheet that's lost. But more importantly, we're out the bottom 3.
Right. So yeah, there are always things to improve on, right? Like even with a great performance like that, it would have been nice to keep the clean sheet. but as much as they were feeding Grealish the ball, you would have thought he would have taken one of the other chances he had. But and this comes from a corner. We just not quick enough to close him down. And he chests it down and hits it beautifully, and the ball dips and swerves and does all kinds of stuff, and it's by McCarthy before he knows what happened. He had another similar shot that McCarthy, I think, managed to save later on. So once again, I think we're all, we're fine. We're fine. I think that I would have liked for it to have a clean sheet because I think it would have been good for the guy's confidence and good for the fans just to get one because it's been, forever since we've had one. It seems like. I think Sheffield United in the Premier League was the last time we had it in the league, and then I think, of course, the guys down the road they didn't manage to score against us either. So, you know,
Yeah, I mean, Charlie comments here, 19 goals for Danny Ings, he thinks. And he adds, I think the last man to score double figures, Graziano Pella. I think you're probably right there, Charlie. I haven't done my research clearly, but fantastic. I mean, Pella was a type of figure that you didn't, when you've lost him, you've known, what am I looking for here? You don't appreciate it until it's gone.
Right. Yeah. Well, and I think you look back at the team, and the team just scored a lot more goals back then as well. I think Shane Long hit double digits one season back then, and now we look at that and you say, man, like you can't even do that in training. So the team is different. We played a different style of football over the past couple of seasons, and we just haven't been, quite frankly, we haven't been as good. So for Danny Ings to be scoring, I think if you look at where we are in the table and where we would be without him, it wouldn't be great.
Absolutely right. To Chelsea then, and as Elvis Costello once said a long time ago, I don't want to go to Chelsea. I think maybe we do want to go to Chelsea now. We can take a lot of heart and spirit moving forward, actually, for Boxing Day. But I mean, Chelsea with a great win over their London rivals Tottenham on Sunday as well. Sometimes you just don't know what you're going to get with them.
Yeah, they are a weird team, and I was rooting for them to lose. Obviously, I didn't want them to have any momentum going into Boxing Day, but they chose to sit Christian Pulisic. Frank Lampard did, and as an American, I need him to be punished for that, but it didn't happen. They played well. Tottenham did not look great. A couple of mistakes from a former Southampton player, even that to give away the penalty. It wasn't a good decision from him. But yeah, I think Chelsea looked dangerous. And for me, the biggest worry I have is you look at the right side of our defense with Cedric. Even in a great game yesterday, there were several instances where Cedric did not cover himself in glory defensively, and you worry about that. There were even a couple of instances where he chose to take on a shot instead of play somebody through down the line that had a better opportunity to cross. But not to dwell too much on that, but you think of the goal that Williams scored from open play. Cutting in from that right side, and you think about Cedric giving him space, and that could really cause us some trouble. So Chelsea are a team that could potentially tear us apart, and I just hope that I hope it doesn't happen. I think we can go there, and if we get a point, I'd be happy with that on Boxing Day.
Yeah, and indeed, actually, we took an absolute hiding to them at St Mary's in the reverse fixture, and I just hope that Ralph has done, his research on how Bournemouth and West Ham snatched victories at Stamford Bridge recently.
Yeah, the team has been that team has been inconsistent, and I think that's one of the things that the Premier League has kind of shocked me. Other than really Liverpool, I think everybody's had games where they've not shown up, and I think that's you got to take advantage of that. If Chelsea come out and play at their best, I'm not sure we can stay with them, and I hate to say that out loud, but I think that's the truth. If they come out though and they're a little bit flat, I think we have to be able to take advantage of that. And yeah, like as you said, hopefully Ralph has a game plan, and this will really be I mean, there's not a whole lot of time now between now and the next couple of fixtures to do that stuff on the training pitch. You have to focus on Villa because that's a match that you need to win with somebody that's near you in the table. And now you kind of just do whatever you can between Chelsea, Crystal Palace, Spurs, and the rest of it. Like this is going to be one of those times where there's probably not going to be huge tactical adjustments, and I wonder even kind of what type of team we'll see, if it'll be the same team we saw on Saturday, or if there will be some slight rotation for this match, or Crystal Palace.
Yeah, I think with this heavy festive fixture, they all stack up over this time of year. And I think, as you say, rotation has got to be fully expected. And Jay has commented here, in fact, if Ings gets injured and the reports we are allowing Adams to go on loan are true, then I think we're going to be in big trouble. And a lot of comments about our targets in January, and we'll get to those in just a minute. But it'd be difficult to kind of replace Ings with Adams at this time over this period.
Yeah, no, I think at some point Adams is going to have to start, and hopefully he gets off the mark a little bit. But I can't see him coming in as direct replacement for Ings right now. I mean, Ings started the season on the bench, kind of bided his time, and when Adams wasn't doing it, came in and has basically made that spot his. There's even talk of Ings for England and all kinds of other things now. He's really forcing everybody into a decision about him, and I think he's going to put himself in such a position with Ralph that Ralph's going to have to let him play. If Ings says he's fit and he can do it, he's going to have to be allowed to do it. And that's something that is a little bit scary for me, just because the injury worries that I have about him. But he looks fit. He looks like I mean, even late in the game yesterday, he was still running everywhere. And as Charlie points out here, 100%, we need to get Adams scoring just for his confidence. And you wonder where that's going to come from. And maybe if we have a penalty or something like that and he's on the pitch, maybe he gets to take it. I'm not sure how that works, but we got to do something to kind of jumpstart him. Otherwise, I think we're going to be in a real spot of bother if something happens to Ings.
Yeah, I mean, Adams has only been playing cameos recently. I mean, he can hardly displace Danny Ings with the form that he's on. And I fully expect Che Adams to start against Huddersfield in the FA Cup in about a week or so's time, though. I mean, Chelsea, if we look at their current form, it's almost sort of kind of similar to what Saints is at the moment. In fact, Saints are probably better on the form charts right now. Chelsea, with only 2 wins in the last 6. And as you mentioned to me off air, they look like they can play football again.
Yeah, this is not the time that I wanted them to come back in and suddenly figure it out, but they have. And Chelsea, it's I have a lot of friends who are Chelsea fans, and I dread this fixture a little bit because the abuse will not stop from the time they score until the game is over. But yeah, their team, it depends on kind of what they do with their midfield. I think Mason Mount can cause us a lot of issues, and William was kind of written off and kind of maybe criticized a little bit this season, but he looks like he's found himself a little bit. And Frank Lampard, if he can figure it out, that team can be very, very dangerous. They won't have Kovacic, I don't think, for us. I think he picked up a yellow card suspension, so that may be good for us. But I think you look at those guys who can play balls through midfield, and if they can pass through our press, any combination of their forward line running at our defenders, I think is worrying.
Harry says here, I think we have a good chance against Chelsea because when ASR, I don't know. Can you finish off the comment there, Harry? I'm not sure what you mean. But Chelsea, of course, they can be devastating on the day. We saw that in first hand at St Mary's a couple of months ago, and 4-1 on that day. But I mean, we can take a lot of spirit and enthusiasm to go into Boxing Day. But what have we got to do then to take a victory? I mean, we took a 0-0 draw there, sort of New Year's Day or so last season, and that was a kind of Angus Gunn showcase. I mean, hopefully that Ralph has done his homework on how West Ham and Bournemouth had dug in and snatched their victories, but we haven't seen much of Saints digging in recently.
No, it doesn't really. I think Ralph spoke to it that doesn't really seem to suit the team. I'd be surprised if we went to a back five for this match and just kind of tried to do that and grind out a result, even though you think back to what we did against, I think, City. We looked good doing that. We unfortunately didn't do anything or didn't take anything away from those matches. But you look at what the team has done going forward and kind of working and pressing higher up the pitch in recent weeks since the last international break. We've looked a lot better doing that. I would kind of imagine we would continue with that. That of course always does leave you open a little bit to being torn apart against a team that can really do it. But I think our guys can do it. I think that if we go there and play as we did against Villa, McCarthy will have to come up with a couple of big saves, of course, and I think that's fine. He's a goalkeeper. That's what he's there for. But I think we'll have to. I think that's the best chance we have, honestly. I don't think if we sit back and and try to just soak up pressure. I don't think that's what this team is best at right now.
And Harry extends his comment here. Last time I went there, we nearly beat them. But if we start on the front foot, we could get 3 points. I think you've got a point there, Harry. In fact, McKessie adds to that. My biggest worry is that they're going to press us and we make mistakes at the back. I think exactly. I think you've got a point there. Every time we kind of looked at Stevens and Bednarek, and I'm sure you can even talk about Cedric and Bertrand. All of them appear like they've got a mistake in them. But last week we didn't show much of that. But over the course of the season, I think I've lost how many times I've counted on my fingers. I think I'm starting to lose how many times I'm counting on my toes about individual errors that have cost us games.
Yeah, well, I think even against Villa late on, that when they started to build into the game, kind of the last 15 minutes, Stevens made a couple of mistakes. He made a couple of mistakes kind of just right in a row, and there was one where the ball kind of came in, it just kind of went under his foot, and Bednarak was able to clear it out. There were a couple of times he was shoved off the ball, and that happened, but he recovered, and I think you saw even after all those mistakes, there was a ball kind of played through for Grealish, who they were just trying to get the ball to late on, and Stevens kind of came through, good hard tackle, kind of cleaned Grealish out, took the ball out, and no foul, and that's from then on he was back to being kind of as good as he had been all match, and so there are definitely vulnerabilities there. Bednarak hasn't looked as good since going to the left hand side to partner Stevens, but I think it's as good as we're going to get, and I think as long as we don't overcomplicate it, I think Chelsea will press us. And I think that what we need to do is if we don't have, there's nothing there, if there's nothing in the midfield to do, and we go back to our goalkeeper and he pumps it long, just then we have to move up the field and kind of push up the field and clear out of our own area and allow Long to kind of win the header, and we have to pick up the knockdown. So I think that's all. I think that's all. I think that's all what we need to do.
Yeah, Makisi, tell us where you are in America, joining us early over in your side of the world as well. So say hello once again where you are watching us or listening to us in America. Right, loads of comments right now. In fact, Makisi again, Danso shouldn't start against Danso shouldn't start against Chelsea. But Jay also adds here, we also need to get Redmond scoring again. Ralph needs to start Buffal once he's back from injury. The amount of chances he creates is good for someone like Ings. And I don't know what the heck has happened to Buffal, but he must have hit that table with some force. Who runs it? It must have had a steel table or something. He can't play without injections. And I think he only made the bench at the weekend. So, I mean, important for Buffal, again, to be on the pitch.
Yeah, I mean, he's been such a kind of a revelation since he's come back from loan and kind of worked himself into the lineup. And if when he comes on the pitch, there's definitely a difference. I look at Djenepo starting, and Djenepo is kind of a wild card. He causes issues for the opposition, but he also causes issues for our own team. If you look at the number of times that Cedric kind of looks at him every game and goes like, where are you, either defensively or when you're looking for a pass, he's kind of just unpredictable. And to have Buffal come in and be able to just kind of be that creative force, but also he's very controlled and he's very much aware of what he's doing, where sometimes I'm not sure Djenepo is all that familiar with what's happening with him, with the ball, when he has it and stuff like that. So I think Buffal is a great player, and it's something that we definitely need to get back in the lineup. But also mentioned in there, Redmond has just not had it recently, and played well, I would say, against Villa, but once again not on the score sheet, and we need him to kind of get there. I think the Saints fans let up a pretty big cheer when he hit the side netting. I think just from their angle, they thought it all went in, and I did as well. But unfortunately for him, just the side netting and another game of no goals.
I certainly thought it went in. And then obviously the Villa fans to our right gave us a bit of stick for that. But Tom, with something a little bit outside the box here. Adams on for Redmond for me and put Long where Redmond is. So, I mean, just briefly run us through your lineup then. Everybody else, get your comments in who you think should start on Boxing Day against Chelsea.
So before I do that, I was going to say, do you think that I was kind of wondering, maybe the rotation should happen for Chelsea, and then us, play the kind of same lineup we saw on Saturday against Crystal Palace. I could see that happening. But aside from that, I wouldn't change very much either. I think we'll either see the same lineup against Chelsea or against Crystal Palace that we played against Villa, and I think I would leave it that way. I don't think I change a thing unless, of course, Djenepo or maybe Buffal are fit to play and from the start.
Yeah, I mean, indeed, I think they need to kind of look at this really. I mean, do they want to prioritise the home game against Crystal Palace, or expect some changes? But again, we're risking losing that kind of that relationship now, that chemistry that we built with this almost unchanged side for the last 4 or 5 fixtures. So Jay has suggested here with a 11 of McCarthy, Cedric, Stevens, Bednarak, Bertrand, Romeo, Ward-Prowse, Hoiberg, Adams, Ings, and Buffal.
So it looks like it's more of a return to the almost the 4-3-3 instead of the 4-2-2-2, which I think
Mm.
would be okay with. I I could see having the extra man in midfield there. I would was a little bit shocked yesterday when Romeo came on. The games kind of seemed to get go more in Villa's favor, but I didn't think that had as much to do with Romeo being on the pitch as it did just with Villa trying to get back into it at the end and having a bit of momentum. But I could see that happening. But I think our big worry right now is if you look at our midfield and the guys who have played in central midfield, especially, there's only three of them, and we need at least two of them per game. And we have this kind of short run of fixtures or the short space between fixtures, and the chemistry and what you have going forward in this 4-2-2-2 formation goes away when you put Romeo in there. And as great of a holding midfielder as he is, I don't think he suits that system very well. I think he needs to come on and kind of anchor things late on in the match. And I think Hoiberg and Ward-Prowse are the two who have to play that thing together in order to kind of get the best out of that system.
Yeah, a lot of similar comments, in fact, coming through here on the live chat. A lot of people are suggesting Shea Adams could get a chance, and I think that would suggest, we are kind of prioritising a little bit towards that Crystal Palace game in about a week's or so time. But again, I think we'll be forced to make rotations, whether it's defensive, offensive. But again, it's going to be difficult time for the players to get fit. Once again, there's going to be a short recovery time. They're only going to have kind of almost less than 24 hours to recover between Chelsea and Crystal Palace.
Yeah, it's got to be extremely tough on them and their bodies, and then as well as just the tactical shifts that are going to have to happen from match to match. You can't imagine that the approach to trying to probably grind out a point against Chelsea and then beat Crystal Palace will be the same. Although you might imagine that our approach against Crystal Palace won't be all that different from what we had against Villa. They have a dangerous kind of playmaker. You kick him. You take turns, fouling them and getting them off the ball, and see hopefully Ward-Prowse can rile Zaha up again, and that will be something we can celebrate going into the new year.
Mm.
I think that would be nice, but yeah, I worry about the rotation simply because Ralph has preferred to play with a small squad. He's gotten the best out of kind of having that consistency, and now this is where us having a lot of mediocre players is going to, I think, come back and be a little bit of an issue because we don't have the quality up and down the bench to really make a huge change, especially in midfield, which I think will be the issue. I think you can swap out the front three. You can replace Ings, Long, and maybe Redmond with Buffal and Adams and maybe even Obafemi, but that's a big difference going forward. And then if you change the midfield over as well, I think you lose kind of the foothold in the game if you do that.
Yeah, I mean, in fact, last season, we saw a lot of rotation. We saw the introduction of Kane Ramsey. We've seen,
Mm-hmm.
I think we saw, what's it, Barnes or the other one that came off the bench occasionally. But I thought that was kind of a time where Ralph was trying to see what he's got. But having said that, I don't think the current under 23 squad are good enough to play in the first team. I think if we look at their results, I think they're bottom of the under 23s second division, which isn't a great indictment of the current structure of the football club. So I think we'll be forced to keep our players in the same 11. I think I wouldn't be surprised if we keep unchanged between Chelsea and Crystal Palace.
Yeah, yeah. I also think if you look at the fullback positions, there's nobody really there to come in and
Mm.
fill in for them unless you play guys out of position. And we all know, I mean, we know what that looks like when you get the team sheet and it's clearly guys are out of position. That doesn't make anybody happy, and it kind of does look from the very beginning like you're kind of writing that game off. And so whether we see Armstrong as a wing back or something like that, I really hope that's not the case. But Ralph's going to have to probably if he makes changes, that I think you guys will wind up having guys out of position. That's just what's going
Mm.
to happen. But I don't know. I think if it was me, I think you you do what you can at Chelsea. Maybe you try to get a point, maybe grind out a point, even though I don't think it's the best approach. And then you focus on Crystal Palace, even though I almost wish that Chelsea was at home and Crystal Palace was away, because we just seem to be, playing a bit better away from home. And I don't think anybody. That's not a surprise to anybody right now.
Mm. Right, sign us off with the score prediction. Then get involved in the comments as well. Actually, before we get to that, in fact, obviously we're quite light in fullback positions, and as you say, Ralph reiterated this in the press conference earlier last week that we will be looking at fullbacks and centre backs, and lots of comments earlier on the show. Thanks for sticking with us if you're still here. But I think it is quite obvious that a centre back is a priority with somebody that's almost kind of ready made for the Premier League. We've seen us kind of linked with, I think it's Long, who's playing for New York Red Bulls. We've seen Pongracic playing for Red Bull Salzburg. Something to do with Red Bull clubs. I don't know what's going on here. But centre back is a priority for me. Somebody that's ready made, has the experience, isn't afraid to communicate and boss their teammates. And again, fullbacks, Cedric is a liability, often showcasing why he can't defend, but he can get up the line. But he hasn't got the best of defensive duties. So I think right and left is an absolute certainty and absolute priority.
Yeah, yeah. My only issue with it is we have so many kind of center backs that are not good enough right now. That can fill in, but are going to make mistakes and are not going to keep clean sheets. And I think that shows with our lack of clean sheets. I think if you're going to bring one in, I mean, I don't know if we have the option to kind of send Danzo back, but he hasn't really made an impact here. And if we can get him away from the squad, not anything against him, just make room for somebody else, get the wages clear and things like that, and see if we can do that. But as you said, if we're going to bring in a center back, it's got to be somebody that is ready to play at this level. Not, I don't think this is the time to take a chance. I'd take somebody on loan maybe. I'm not sure I want to make a big experience signing because it just doesn't seem to fit what the club wants to do. And I said a couple of weeks ago on the podcast that if you take the guys that we have right now, and you take Stevens and Bednarak, and you say, like, look, you're going to be what we have going forward. You're going to be the two that we use. Then you just let them play. And if they make mistakes, so be it. They're going to be the ones that have to learn to work with each other, and to disrupt that maybe for, to move 2 places higher on the table so we can have an experienced guy there. I'm not sure that's worth it. But that said, I think Premier League safety is got to be a priority. So you have to do what we think is right there.
Right, lots of positivity. In fact, lots of goals. People are predicting in the comments. Tom has gone 2-2. Desmond Jay has gone 1-2 to the Saints. Stuart's also gone 2-1 for Saints with Ings and Long on the score sheet. McKeesey has gone 2-2, and from Chicago, by the way, so the other side of the states, Matt. And Harry's also gone 2-1. Saints Abraham to score in 20 minutes, 50 minutes. Ings had 85 on Ward Prowse.
I'll take that. Take all of that. I think my typical prediction is 2-1 Saints because I don't like to say we're going to lose. So I would go with that. I think, yeah, I don't think we can keep a clean sheet, but I do think we can score some goals. And it's just, can Ings get there? And maybe Adams does get one late on. And I think, I would imagine that Ings would start this match, and then I think depending on how it's going, if we're losing, 2-0 at halftime and we don't have a foothold in the game, I don't imagine he comes back out for the second half. I think he gets rested. If we're in it, if it's 1-1, if it's 0-0, or we're anything like that, I think Ings probably plays a little bit more. So I think Ralph has been better, but his in-game management than maybe his pre-game tactics. So I think that's what we'll see. But I'll go 2-1 Saints, and just hope for going into the new year on a positive note.
Yeah, and the only comment that I'm personally going to agree with, I mean, lots of positivity, lots of comments, 2-1, 2-2, but I think I'm going to go with as far's prediction here. I think, to be honest, 1-1 is probably about right for Saints. I think as a target, if you like, and I think taking a point away from Stamford Bridge isn't an awful result. Mark has gone at 1-0. So lots of positivity spreading through the comments. And in fact, just one last thing before we do go. Obviously, school's out now for you, I guess,
Yes.
up until the new year. So what's it going to be on the big day? Have you got your turkey all set? What do you tend to get up to on Christmas Day?
So Christmas Eve is like my side of the family does their big thing on Christmas Eve. So Christmas Eve midnight we'll meet at my mom's side of the family, and we'll there'll be lots of drinks. The kids will open their presents. We'll play. We have this big game that we play as adults, and the oldest grandchild that's not 21 that can't play in the game. She's got to be 21 to play in the game. They have to go make food for everybody. So he'll make pasta for the entire family, for all 40 of us, while we're doing that. And we'll play our game and drink, and we'll get home about 4 or 5 in the morning. And we'll wake up and the kids will open their presents here, and then we'll go to my wife's side of the family and we'll do the big Christmas dinner. We'll have turkey, mashed potatoes. It's basically Thanksgiving all over again, which is the good part. The bad part is carting all the stuff all over the place, and inevitably disappointing one cousin that I haven't seen in 3 years because I didn't get the kid the right thing. But that's okay. It's I can live with that because I probably won't see him again for 3 years, so it's fine.
So it's going to be an incredibly hungover Boxing Day morning, is it?
Yeah. Which is why I'm glad we're going 3 p.m. and not any earlier, because that Spurs game a couple of seasons ago, I was supposed to record something for the Premier League in USA, and I had a really hard time doing it after everything that had happened. So it's going to be a good time, and I'm looking forward to it. It's once the family gets here and everything, it's all good. It's just the prep work that's a little bit. I don't know. It does bad things to the inside of me. It gets me nervous and stuff like that. But
yeah, great stuff, Matt. And thank you all in the comments. And I guess it must be said. Hopefully, you will have a wonderful Christmas. Lots of comments all around the world, and do enjoy yourselves this week. And Matt, thanks again for joining us.
Oh, my pleasure, and Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays, everybody.